Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, it's the Journalists Roundtable. We'll look at the week's top stories, including an update on ASU's involvement in the 2022 gubernatorial debate. Journalists Roundtable is next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your public television station.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. It's Friday, and that means it's time for the Journalists Roundtable. And joining us tonight, Mary Jo Pitzel of the Arizona Republic and azcentral.com, Howie Fisher of Capital Media Services, and Jeremy Duda of Axios Phoenix. And we should note Jeremy's wife works for Arizona PBS. Panel, good to have you all here. Thank you so much for joining us. Mary Jo, we're going to start with you with the elephant in the room. Actually, it's that room over there. That's where the debates are held, not this particular studio. Your paper, Arizona Republic, with an update of a story, a few years old now, regarding the debate. Why was the story updated? What did we learn?
This story came from my colleague, Stacey Barchenger, and after, in 2022, when Kari Lake denied or declined being on the debate stage at ASU in a clean elections debate because Katie Hobbs had said she's not, excuse me, I got that backwards.
I was going to say, yeah.
Katie Hobbs said, I'm not going to participate in a debate with Kari Lake. So that led to, as we now learned, a lot of behind-the-scenes maneuvering, which ultimately resulted in Hobbs getting her own half-hour segment on the debate stage all by herself, and Kari Lake refusing a later offer to get the same deal and took it elsewhere. But this was all prompted because there were just a lot of unanswered questions from back in 2022 about what actually was going on. Yeah,
a lot of unanswered questions in a variety of ways. Did we get more answers from these records that were finally released by the university?
Hard to know, because these are all academicians, God help us, communicating by email, and some of it was sort of murky. I think it was very important for the Republic, and I do commend Stacey for doing this, to go back and say, how did we get here? How did we get to a point? Because remember, Citizens Clean Elections was set up that everybody agrees to participate. And the governor, who didn't want to debate her primary foe either in 2022, perhaps thinking maybe I wouldn't do so well against Kari, who is a bit of an attack dog, just simply saying, well, I want my own time. Well, you know, at some point, unfortunately, this got all the way to the university president, probably a place it shouldn't have gone. And you have decisions being made and memos about, well, what's the image and what's our requirements under the Federal Communications Commission and equal time, and it, again, I don't know that it added anything to what we already know, but it was a nice peek behind the curtain.
Yeah, and it's the Lake camp was the camp that said she didn't want Hobbs, the governor did not want to. Well, Katie Hobbs at that time did not want to debate. Yeah. It sounds like from these messages, the university was more concerned about what Kari Lake was going to say. Right.
In fact, I do think we learned something new. At least it verified what a lot of people suspected, and this was after getting public records requests fulfilled, 2 years after it was first filed. Just for the record, public records are supposed to be delivered promptly under the law. What this showed us is that ASU President Michael Crow was concerned that they would be giving Kari Lake a platform to express her election denial beliefs. And as we know, Kari Lake, was a very vocal proponent of the theory that Donald Trump was denied the 2020 presidential election. So that led to them just deciding that, this is not going to work. We're not going to go ahead with the clean elections format, which says everybody's invited, but if you decline, your opponent still gets time. That did not happen in this case.
And this is really critical because it suggested that somebody was thinking, not FCC rules, but thinking, are we going to allow our station on the air, God, what are we, 50 years on the air here?
More than that, yeah.
Yeah. Would be used for political purposes. Well, again, should not have come to that level. It should not have come to the level where somebody up to the university president, up to the vice presidents are saying, she's going to use this to deny what happened in 2020. So what if, in fact, this is a public forum, which it is, it again shouldn't have gotten that far.
Let's go to some quotes here. The governor asked, I guess today or yesterday, about all of this. And she says that, quote, don't know what went into any of the decisions around that debate or interview. Carrie Lake asked about the new information, and she says that ASU and Arizona PBS colluded to prevent me from having a debate forum for fear I would talk about election fraud. That was your hypothesis. And because their chosen candidate, Carrie Hobbs, would have been destroyed in a debate by me, trampled my First Amendment rights, unethical and likely illegal. That's new too, I guess.
Well, it was nice to have that comment from Ms. Lake. It would have been nice to have had it for the first version of the story,
yes.
but she declined comment at that point.
Yeah, and we should mention, Howie, that again, this rupture ruptured not only that particular debate season, but it also ruptured the relationship with clean elections.
And that's truly unfortunate, because in all the time that I've been covering politics in the state, and I started covering the legislature in '82, I've depended on debates, even before clean elections existed, but there were debates here at Channel 8 by you, by your predecessor, and they've always been a good format and always been an opportunity for voters to see. I have to admit, I was not pleased with the clean elections debates last time. I don't think it really got behind the issues that needed to be done. And I'm not saying this just to blow smoke your way, but you've got a way of saying, yes, but you haven't answered my question. And I don't think that they've figured that out over clean elections yet, even if they're working with other stations.
Well, I appreciate that, and maybe we will be able to do something about that. We don't know. We don't know how ruptured the situation is. I guess we will find out before the debate season starts. Anything to add?
Well, I would say one thing, that yes, it ruptured this long-standing agreement on debates, but the format that clean elections came up with arguably reaches a lot more audiences, with all due respect to public broadcasting, but they make it available to all other news outlets if they want to. Maybe they can sharpen up their moderator directions and suggestions, but I think, I don't know that everything has caved, but that's very interesting to hear that this is still a fluid.
Please, don't quote me on that. I'm just saying, let's hope that some sort of Band-Aid is attached, and on we go. Yeah. And on we go. How we've talked enough about.
On that.
Yeah, we've talked enough about this. Let's talk about what's going on at the Board of Supervisors. One of the supervisors is files a legal complaint against the county recorder.
Oh, well, Justin Heap, as we know, was elected county recorder, and he has decided that he's being picked on by those supervisors. Never mind that 4 of the 5 of them are Republicans, just the same as he is. And there's been issues about shared services programs, about who gets to send out early ballots and everything else. Well, what Steve Gallardo, who's a lone Democrat on the board, is saying is that Justin was going behind his back. He was effectively violating the open meeting law by going to 3 of the 5 members of the Board of Supervisors, whether directly or through emails, which can be a violation of the open meeting law, and also lied to the Republicans saying, oh, Gallardo will come along. And at this point, Steve had enough and said, okay, let's dance. Let's find out if, in fact, he broke the law.
And again, 2 of the texts were sent to supervisors. It's an interesting theory as to that 3rd supervisor, because Gallardo basically said, he said it was me, and it wasn't me, but he said it was me.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what would convince Justin Heap that Steve Gallardo would want to go along with his plans for that office, or his hopes and dreams for what kinds of authority might be restored to that office by the Board of Supervisors. But if the 3 of them, suppose the 3 of them, Supervisor Gallardo, Lesko, and Stewart, had communicated amongst themselves saying, hey, let's do this for Justin Heap, that would absolutely be an open and shut violation of the open meeting law. Is Justin Heap himself subject to that, who's not a member of the board? I don't know that he is, but I think something that Supervisor Gallardo probably wants looked into is he soliciting a violation of that? Is he trying to get 3 supervisors, even though apparently he only actually talked to 2 of them, because he claimed that, we saw in some previous text from his previous complaint to the AG's office that he'd said, I've done some arm twisting behind the scenes with Gallardo, and I think Gallardo's response to that was, keep my name out of your lying mouth.
Right, yeah. If
I recall the words correctly.
That was last week's Friday Roundtable. That's what we had last week. Yeah. Now we got this week. Where does this go from here?
Well, we'll see what the Attorney General's office does with this, if anything. But meanwhile, we do have a lawsuit that's in process. We had Justin Heap sue the County Board of Supervisors over this agreement on how to divide up election duties. The county countersued the supervisors, and they've consolidated the cases, and someday it will show up in Maricopa County Superior Court. And I think most parties agree, all the parties agree that let's just get this settled.
Right.
Let's figure out, who does what, and let's get a legal ruling on it, because it's been sort of murky. I mean, if people who've been watching the show for a long time would remember back when Helen Purcell was Maricopa County Recorder, she did everything.
Yeah.
They didn't divide it between elections and the recorder. She just did everything, even though the law basically says you're supposed to have that separate.
And that's really the point, is that, we've kind of operated by the seat of our pants here. I've also seen the same thing in several other counties. Well, the recorder, you're just keeping track of who's registered to vote, getting them registered, things like that, and maybe sending out early ballots. But that the rest of it is within the Board of Supervisors, who usually appoints an elections director. There really does need to be some clarification. So I have a feeling this is going to end up at the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court's going to say, I think maybe you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, who are they going to tell they're doing it wrong?
Well, I think they're going to tell the supervisors they're doing it wrong, in the sense of the supervisors saying we want it all back. It's tricky because now you're looking at you're looking at the Title 11, which is what the law governing counties, and Title 16, which is the law governing elections, and they don't always match.
Yeah.
Sure. And right now, we've got a little bit of a reprieve because I don't think we have any elections coming up. Well, I guess we have the special election for CD7, but next we're gonna have to figure this out in relatively short order to have it go through the court system, because we don't want this still hanging out there by the big primary election next year, where we don't know who has authority over what.
And that primary next year is August 4th. I mean, today is August 8th. It's not even less than a year away.
I know, it's coming. Staying with you, Mary Jo, Senate President wants a federal investigation of a fellow state senator. What's going on here?
President Warren Peterson was offended by Senator Annalise Ortiz's social media advocacy, saying, I'm going to let people know when I see ICE out in the community, in my community. I'm going to post that and basically tell people to stay away so that they don't get caught up by ICE. Peterson sees that as interfering with the duties of federal agents, and it's federal law. And so we turned to the U.S. Attorney for Arizona and made the request, which apparently has been acknowledged, and we'll see if Senator Ortiz is going to, come up under prosecution. In her defense, she says, "Wait a minute, this is no different than like if you post something on Nextdoor, like watch out for this, hoo-ha who I saw on my Ring doorbell who's stealing, who's being a porch pirate, or from other apps that let people know what's going on in their community."
But it's even broader than that. I mean, look. On my cell phone, I have an application called Waze. It's much like Google Maps, and you get directions. Hi, I want to make it to the ASU studio. But it also lets people group share where their radar guns, where the DPS officers standing on the side. Okay, you are reporting. Is that in fact interfering, obstructing a government official? I mean, this is clear First Amendment rights here. I mean, you have a right. I have a right to say, that, Phoenix police are here. Let's take it down the illogical path. If I am a journalist doing a live broadcast of an ICE raid, have I interfered because other people may see that and come down? What's really unfortunate is that Senator Peterson is a lawyer, and not very long. He should know better.
Well, and that brings up what could be an interesting Attorney General's race next year.
Sure, and Chris Mays, whose job Warren Peterson wants, did not waste any time in taking any shots at her prospective opponent. I suppose Senator Peterson still has a primary election he would have to get through first, but she tweeted at him something effective. I know you haven't been a lawyer for very long, but maybe you need to take some classes on First Amendment law. And going back to Howie's point for a second, I mean, there's an app that you can download on your phone where people can report ICE activity. Senator Ortiz is far from the first person this year since President Trump took office to start putting out information like this out on social media, warning people. So this has become a somewhat common thing. Maybe not as much with elected officials, but there's a lot of people doing this on social media.
There are a lot of vehicles that have installed a device that says, hey, there's a radar camera up ahead.
Yeah.
Slow down.
Yeah.
Well, that's true, although in some states they're illegal, but not in this state. But it goes so far beyond that, because now you have Jake Hoffman, who is the chairman of the Director Nominations Committee, among other things, a definite Trumper, saying, okay, even if the feds won't take action, I want an ethics complaint. I'm filing an ethics complaint, and I want her expelled from the legislature. Again, I asked the good senator, so exactly how is this obstructing? And all he said is, well, the Democrats want to free criminals. I don't think anybody has really thought this one.
Well, and I think Peterson actually said she's lucky that the legislature isn't in session right
Well,
now.
he did sort of hint that there would be some kind of repercussions if she had done this 2 months ago.
Yeah.
Which could be like an ethics investigation,
which will go nowhere. There'll be
Presumably.
maybe the ethics committee, which is weighted with Republicans, could certainly decide you need a 2/3 vote to expel. I'm sorry. The Democrats and probably a few Republicans are going to say, I don't want to go down this path, whereas if I put something out on my website, if I post something online, if I put something on X, that suddenly somebody's going to bring charges against me of obstruction.
Yeah. All right, Jeremy, who is Miley Biggs, and why does she want to, or does she want to run? I don't know.
Well, she presumably wants to run. She's filed to run. She is a conservative activist. If the last name is not a coincidence, she is the daughter of Congressman and potential future Governor Andy Biggs. She's running for the state senate out in East Valley, out in the Gilbert area. I believe that is Senator Peterson's seat, actually. But what the Phoenix New Times learned this week is that about a year ago, she made some kind of eyebrow-raising comments on a podcast talking about how she doesn't really think women should be holding public office, which is curious, and she is now running for public office, and also with no opposition right now, and potentially no opposition at all.
Well, I was going to say they're likely. I mean, they're pretty much insured out that district, aren't they?
Well, I don't know. Haven't we heard rumors that maybe Justine Wadsack might be moving to that district, and she's also a Republican and with an eye towards running. That's not confirmed, but that's a lot of the chatter. So it's not necessarily a lock, but at this point, it looks like a pretty clear path. And I got to say, I mean, the Biggs name, is probably
Yes.
pretty gold down in that
But
district.
there's something there. Every so often, I appreciate this is a safe red district.
Yeah.
But we've had a history before. I had a former House Speaker, Jeff Grosskopf, who got knocked out for something stupid he did, which had to do with vehicles and
Alternative fuels.
Alternative fuels. When you've got not only a woman saying, I don't think women should be running for office, but I like my little 9-to-5 thing, and that's what people should be doing and going home. I'm sorry, the legislature is not a 9-to-5 job.
Will it hurt her? This quote: "Women should run the home. Holding office is a man's position." I mean, in that district, does that hurt you?
I mean, it's hard to say. You'd think in any race that would potentially hurt you, but it's hard to see her facing a serious primary challenger. Everyone who supports Biggs, the whole Trump wing of the party, the Freedom Caucus, Turning Point crowd, everyone is going to line up behind her. I can't see her, any serious Republican who's going to say, maybe this will convince someone to come out, but general election is pretty much a sure thing for the Republican nominee. I mean, maybe it could. I've heard a lot of candidates say a lot of bizarre things since I've been in this job. I don't think I've ever heard a woman candidate say, I don't think women should be in office.
Well, remember, she wasn't a candidate when she made that statement a year ago. I mean, I'm curious, please call me, to understand why, was there a change of, obviously there was a change of heart because she has filed, as Jeremy noted. Maybe, I don't know, maybe a light bulb went out. She's young, she's 25.
How does she square this now? I mean, that's a good question.
We'd love to know.
All right, Howie, ex-lawmaker David Stringer is back in the news. Who is David Stringer, and why is he back in the news?
David Stringer is a Prescott attorney who has been in the news and was one of a few lawmakers actually removed from the legislature after they found out that he had actually been involved and essentially convicted of having sex with for money with a teenage boy back in Baltimore. There was questions of whether he had lied to his colleagues, lied to the ethics committee and everything else. So he was gone. Everyone assumed he's got a little website up there. Well, his little website is publishing cartoons about another lawmaker from Prescott, name of Quang Nguyen, and includes a number of things, including a cartoon of Nguyen, who is Vietnamese, eating a dog. There's a certain point in there. There's a First Amendment line. I don't know where that line is, but now Mr. Nguyen is very unhappy, and so he's using the one tool he has. Because of the fact that Stringer is an attorney, he's gone to the State Bar of Arizona and said he has violated ethical rules of conduct for lawyers. Because can't discipline him at the legislature. He's already gone from there, and I don't think it's First Amendment. But maybe this is a way of getting at him.
These are AI-generated cartoons, Jeremy. Again, one figure and eating dogs, and the other claims that Nguyen doesn't understand English, and Nguyen just basically says these are inherently dishonest and they are deceitful to publish because this is, as Howie mentioned, his news thing. Disbarment, is that possible?
It's hard to say. He hasn't gotten disbarred yet, and he's had a lot of issues. I mean, the stuff that Howie mentioned, the alleged sex crimes that forced him to resign from the legislature a few years ago. That's what he's most known for now. But before that, he was most known for kind of a constant barrage of racist comments, and that wasn't enough to get him out of the legislature. And he kept his license, a lot of license throughout. I don't know if anyone ever filed a complaint, but he's had other complaints against him, and it's kind of a murky process in terms of,
And the fact that this was done within the context of a publication, because all publications are not, hard print. Now you're running into First Amendment issues.
Right.
I don't think the State Bar wants to be deciding that a cartoon published in a newspaper or in an e-magazine crosses the line. I think the idea of the best issue when dealing with free speech is more speech.
Sounds like APS wants to make a speech about how it is looking at green energy, or at least renewable energy, or at least whatever the heck they were doing before they're doing what they're doing now.
Yeah, if you remember, go back to 2018, and there's a big clean energy measure on the ballot that would have forced, I think, 100% clean energy by 2030 or something. APS, they didn't just open the checkbook; they threw it at the opposition, spent millions and millions of dollars to defeat this. A year and a half later, they said, okay, well, guess what we're going to do now? By 2050, we're going to have 100% carbon-free, clean energy, no carbon emissions at all. Looked pretty good, right? Well, this week, they said, in an quarterly earnings call, the CEO said, hey, we're actually not going to do that. We're going to do carbon neutrality, where we'll offset any carbon emissions with clean energy. But the carbon-free 100% by 2050, that's out the window.
Do we know why that's out the window?
I think they think it's unfeasible, and it'll slow down the growth of the energy supply to get more energy coming from wind power and solar.
Speaking of wind, is the wind blowing in a direction that makes it easier to make this decision?
Well, that comes down to the politics of it. We have a president who loves clean, beautiful coal. We've got a new natural gas pipeline coming into Arizona that all the utilities are looking at, and they're saying, do we really want to take on the Trump administration and say, no, we're going to build more solar cells, assuming we can even get them if they're all coming from China in the first place? I think they're looking and they're doing one of these and saying, using wind power, no, it's not blowing our way anymore.
Yeah, does that make sense to you?
It makes a lot of sense. We've definitely seen that the federal level has shifted away from that. Back towards stuff like natural gas, which is, they mentioned, they're reinvesting in now. Big pipeline announcement that'll be coming online in 2020, which raises concerns. I spoke with a couple of former corporation commissioners, our Attorney General Chris Mays and our former colleague Bill Mandel. Said, hey, here's the thing about this. This comes down to the bottom line: is if you're building more, gas plants, more infrastructure, then you need to pay for it, which means you get rate hikes, which means there's more money flowing. But APS says, hey, not until we don't have to pay for anything gas-wise until after 2029. After that, we'll go through the normal rate-making process.
Will this have any future impact on who decides to run and who winds up winning corporation commission seats?
Well, it's tricky because what the Republicans who are there, who probably in agreement with a lot of this, are saying is, we want cheap, reliable power. And when people get their electric bills of $300, $400, $500 a month, and they say, well, is it because we're subsidizing solar or subsidizing wind? They'll say, yeah, I can breathe some of this carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, and all the rest of it. And it's the same problem that people are having, that we talk about climate change and everything else. People say, well, that's down the road. People are looking at their bills now, and I think it's going to make it real hard to say, well, we need more renewables.
Sure, remember that 2018 ballot measure on clean energy, that got, if I recall correctly, just absolutely stomped. And of course, $30 million, something spent against it, but still, that, the voters made pretty clear
When you
their
talk
thoughts
about
on
the
that.
impact on the bills, well, I guess we're just going to disregard the post-2029 effect of bringing in a new pipeline. But
We'll see that.
Yeah.
Well, and there's one other option here, which is that they're starting to talk about, and Trump seems to be okay with, small compact nuclear plants. And nothing really happened since 3 Mile Island. It's just kind of poisoned the well. But there is technology available that is compact, doesn't use as much water, which is really an issue here in the desert, doesn't use as much fuel, which means fewer fuel rods to go ahead and bury in the ground forever. So I think that's really the next step. And if you can do that, and that's true carbon-free emissions, you can get a long way to where you need to go.
Sure, and you do have APS, SRP, and Tucson Electric Power now talking about building a new nuclear plant for the first time here, for the first time since Palo Verde went online.
And the question would be, I would guess, just how big that plant would be and how portable that, well, not portable, but how, what am I trying to say? How economical that plant might be.
right, as opposed to some of these smaller plants that are
And it's
still
one
like
other
an early.
piece of this, and we saw it in Tucson with the issue of AI and all this stuff. These are huge users of water and energy. And I think for a lot of folks, the reason that the city council voted it down 7-0 is they said, wait a second, we don't want us to have subsidized more water, more energy that's going to raise our own bills.
We'll stop you right there. Panel, good to have you here. Thanks for joining us. That's it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great weekend.